The dark market, the city, never slept, its streets glowing with strange alien lights. Its alleys filled with whispers and danger. Humans rarely walked here. It was called the dark market. A place where anything could be bought or sold, even lives. The human mechanic named Daniel walked slowly through the crowded street. His boots echoed on the cracked stone floor. He had come here looking for spare parts for his old ship. But what he found was something he could never imagine. Voices called out from the shadows, rare gems, cheap fuel, illegal weapons. Then he heard another voice, softer, crueler, rent a girl. Only for one night. Daniel froze. He turned his head and saw cages hidden behind thick curtains. A sharp smell of rust and fear filled the air. Inside one cage, he saw her. An alien girl with pale skin that shimmered under the neon lights. Her eyes glowed faint blue, but they were tired. Her arms were thin, her hair tangled, chains wrapped around her ankles. She didn't cry, she didn't speak. She only stared at the floor, as if hope was already gone. Daniel felt something strange in his chest. He had seen many broken machines in his life, but never a broken soul. His hands clenched into fists. He wanted to look away, to walk past, but her eyes slowly lifted and met his. For 1 second, he felt as if she was begging him without words. The merchant noticed his stare and smiled with sharp teeth. Human, you want her. One night, only one coin. She is weak, but still alive. Maybe this is her last week. Take her now, cheap price. Daniel shook his head. His heart was heavy. Why would anyone treat her like this? He whispered to himself, she's not a thing. The merchant leaned closer, his breath foul. In the dark market, everything is a thing. Daniel hesitated. His mind told him to turn back. This was not his fight. He needed to buy parts. Fix his ship, leave this city. But his heart burned. He saw her thin hands gripping the bars. He saw the quiet pain in her eyes. Finally, Daniel spoke. One night, I'll take her. His voice was cold, but inside, he was shaking. The merchant laughed and unlocked the cage. Chains clattered as the girl stepped out slowly. Her legs trembled, as if she had forgotten how to walk. Daniel reached out his hand, but she pulled back. Her eyes narrowed with fear. She had been rented many times, always hurt, always used. She didn't trust him. Daniel sighed. I won't hurt you, he said softly. But she stayed silent as they left the market. Whispers followed them. Other aliens watched with mocking eyes. Another fool human, one hissed. She won't last long. Another sneered. Daniel ignored them. He guided her through the glowing alleys until they reached his small workshop. Inside, the air smelled of metal and oil. Tools scattered. On the tables, a half-broken ship engine rested in the corner. He brought her water, but she stared at the cup like it was poison. He pushed it gently into her hands. Drink, he said. After a long pause, she sipped, her dry lips trembling. Daniel sat across the room, watching her. He didn't know why he had done this. Maybe it was guilt, maybe pity, maybe something deeper he couldn't name. Outside, the neon lights flickered. Inside, silence filled the space. The girl looked at him with cautious eyes. She didn't thank him. She didn't speak, but her eyes said something Daniel could almost understand. Not hope, not yet, but maybe the smallest spark of it. That night, as the city roared outside, Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He told himself this was only one night. Tomorrow, she would be taken back. But in his heart, he already knew nothing would ever be the same again. The one night the small workshop was quiet. Only the hum of an old generator filled the air. The alien girl sat in the corner, her thin arms wrapped around her knees. Her eyes wandered across the strange human tools, sharp and heavy, but she did not move. Daniel placed a blanket on the floor near the heater. You can rest here, he said softly, but the girl did not answer. She stared at him with sharp suspicion. For her, humans were danger, not safety. She had learned that the hard way. Daniel didn't push her. He walked to his workbench and picked up a broken piece of engine. His hands moved automatically, but his eyes often lifted toward her. She sat so still, like a shadow, afraid to breathe. After a long time, her voice came weak and cracked. Why? Daniel looked up. Why what? She swallowed and whispered, why you rent me? If you don't use me. Her voice shook with fear and confusion. Daniel's chest tightened. He put down the tool and said, because you are not an object. His voice was firm but gentle. The girl looked away quickly, as if she didn't believe him. He brought her food, simple bread and stew. The smell reached her, and her stomach growled. She tried to hide it, but Daniel noticed. He pushed the bowl toward her. Eat. She hesitated, then slowly picked up a spoon. For the first time in a long time, warm food touched her lips. Her eyes watered, but no tears fell. Daniel watched silently. He didn't ask questions. He didn't force words. He only let her eat in peace. Something in the quiet moment felt heavier than any spoken promise. When she finished, she leaned back, her body shaking from weakness. He placed the blanket gently over her shoulders. She stiffened at his touch, but did not pull away. Slowly, her body relaxed under the warmth. Hours passed. Daniel repaired wires, cleaned tools, while she sat watching him. Her eyes followed his steady hands. His silence felt different from the others she had known. They had always demanded, shouted, or hurt, but he was calm, like a quiet storm that never struck. Finally, she whispered, my name is Lyra. Daniel looked at her in surprise. She had given him something valuable, her name. He smiled faintly. I'm Daniel. For a moment, their eyes met, and in that small spark, trust began to grow. As night deepened, the city outside echoed with laughter, fights, and the noise of engines. Inside the workshop, there was stillness. Lyra lay down on the blanket. Curling up like a frightened child, Daniel turned off the lamp but stayed awake, watching the shadows shift in the darkness. Lyra spoke again, her voice small. Tomorrow, they take me back. Daniel's heart pounded. He had no answer. He knew the truth. Yes. Tomorrow she would be taken. He clenched his fists. Sleep, he said gently. Tonight you are safe. She closed her glowing eyes, her breathing uneven. For the first time in many nights, she fell into real sleep. No chains, no cold floor, no cruel hands. Only silence and warmth. Daniel sat in the dim light, his mind restless. He told himself this was only one night. But the thought of returning her back to that cage burned inside him. He looked at her sleeping face, fragile yet strong. And in that quiet moment, Daniel made a silent promise to himself. Tomorrow would not be the same. Tomorrow, he would not let her go back, even if it cost him everything. The night stretched on, heavy with unspoken choices. The one night had just begun, but Daniel already knew it would change both their lives forever. The return morning light slipped through the cracks of the workshop's metal walls. Dust floated in the golden beams. Daniel had not slept. He sat at his workbench, tools scattered around. His eyes were heavy, but his mind sharper than ever. He knew what was coming. Lyra woke slowly. Her glowing eyes blinked in confusion. For a moment, she forgot where she was. There was no cage, no chains, no cold stone floor. She sat up, clutching the blanket around her thin shoulders. Then she saw Daniel, silent, watching her. She whispered, it wasn't a dream. Her voice shook with disbelief. Daniel shook his head. No dream. She lowered her eyes, but a small, fragile hope touched her face. The peace didn't last. Heavy footsteps echoed outside. A harsh knock hit the workshop door. Open. A deep alien voice demanded. Lyra's body froze. Fear returned to her eyes. Her hands shook. They came, she whispered. Daniel stood, his jaw tight. He opened the door a crack. Outside were 2 alien guards, their armor dark and their eyes filled with cold cruelty. Behind them stood the merchant from the dark market. His sharp teeth flashed in a mocking grin. You enjoyed your night, human. The merchant sneered. Time's up. Give her back. Daniel gripped the door. His voice was calm but heavy. She's not an item. The merchant laughed. Oh, but she is. She's mine to sell, mine to rent. You paid for one night? No. More Lyra hid behind Daniel. Trembling, the guards pushed forward. Move, human. One growled. Daniel's heart raced. He wanted to fight. But he knew he couldn't win against 2 armed guards. His fists clenched, but his mind screamed for control. The merchant leaned closer, whispering cruelly. If you resist, human, we'll kill you and drag her back. Choose wisely. Daniel looked at Lyra. Her eyes begged silently, not for rescue, but for mercy. She had lived her life believing no one could fight for her. Slowly, Daniel stepped aside. His chest burned with anger and helplessness. The guards grabbed Lyra's arm roughly. She gasped in pain but did not scream. She had learned long ago that screaming never helped. As they dragged her away, Daniel's voice called out, "Wait." Everyone froze. His voice carried something sharp, something dangerous. The merchant turned, annoyed. What now? Daniel's eyes locked on Lyra. He spoke firmly. I will come back for her. The merchant laughed so hard, the street echoed. Come back. Human, you can't even afford your own tools. How will you buy freedom? She will die before you see her again. The guards shoved Lyra forward. Chains clinked around her ankles once more. She looked back over her shoulder. Her glowing eyes met Daniel's one last time before the street swallowed her. When the door shut, silence filled the workshop. Daniel stood in the middle of the room, his hands shaking with rage. He slammed his fist against the table. Tools rattled to the ground. His heart screamed. He had failed. He had given her one night of peace only to see her return to chains. But deep inside, a fire burned, stronger than guilt, stronger than fear. He whispered to himself, not again, never again. Daniel walked to the corner where his few credits were hidden in a metal box. He opened it, staring at the small amount of money. Not enough, never enough, but his decision was clear. He would find a way. He would return to the dark market. Not as a renter, but as a buyer. Outside the city buzzed with neon life. Unaware of the storm inside one human's heart, Daniel had made his choice. The return had already begun, and this time he would not let her slip away. The purchase. The dark market was alive again that night. Neon lamps buzzed, shadows stretched, and voices filled the air. Daniel walked through the crowd with heavy steps. His pockets carried every coin he had. The weight of his choice pressed harder than any metal. He reached the merchant's stall. The same cruel smile waited for him. The merchant leaned forward. Back so soon. Human. Miss her already? Laughter rolled from his sharp teeth. Daniel didn't answer. His jaw was tight. His eyes didn't move from the cage. And there she was, Lyra. Her glowing eyes dim, her body weaker than the night before, chains bit in two. Her wrists, her head lowered, but she lifted it when she sensed him. A faint light flickered in her eyes, but it was fragile, like a candle about to die. Daniel pointed at her. I want to buy her. The crowd around them hushed. Some aliens chuckled, some leaned closer. This was unusual. Humans rented, they never bought. The merchant raised his eyebrows, mocking surprise. By her. She is broken, weak, nearly useless. Why waste credits on her? Daniel's voice was steady. Name your price. The merchant tapped his long claws against the cage bars. His eyes glittered with greed. He knew this human was serious. 10,000 credits, he said. His voice echoed. The crowd gasped. That was more than most ships cost. Daniel's stomach twisted. He had only half that amount. He slammed a pouch of coins onto the table. 5,000, everything I have. The merchant laughed so loud the guards grinned. Not enough, he sneered. Maybe come back when you learn how to bargain. He gestured for his guards to push Daniel away, but Daniel didn't move. His voice cut through the noise, calm and sharp. 5,000 now, the rest in work. The merchant blinked, confused. Work? Daniel nodded. I am a mechanic. I fix ships, engines, weapons. I'll repair everything you bring me until the debt is done. His eyes burned with determination. The merchant tilted his head. He had seen desperation before, but never like this. This human looked ready to burn himself alive just for one girl. Greed twisted into amusement. Interesting offer, he hissed. But why her? There are stronger ones, prettier ones, healthier ones. Daniel didn't blink. Because she is the one I choose. The silence that followed was heavy. Lyra's chest rose quickly. She could hardly breathe. The idea of belonging to no one, of being free, felt like a dream too dangerous to touch. Finally, the merchant slammed his clawed hand on the table. Done, human. Pay now, and the girl is yours. Work until I say the debt is clear. But know this: she will ruin you. She is cursed. She brings only trouble. Daniel shoved the pouch forward without hesitation. The merchant laughed and unlocked the cage. The sound of chains falling was like thunder in Lyra's heart. She stepped forward slowly, almost afraid to move. Daniel reached out his hand, this time, after a long pause. She placed her trembling fingers in his. The crowd whispered loudly. Some with disgust, some with curiosity. The merchant leaned close one last time, whispering with a grin, "You bought her, human, but you also bought your death. The market does not forgive those who steal profit." Daniel ignored him. His focus was only on Lyra. He pulled her gently away, step by step, until they disappeared into the crowded street. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt the weight of chains vanish. But freedom came with fear. She looked at Daniel and whispered, "Why? Why me?" Daniel didn't answer with words. He only squeezed her hand tighter. The answer was already clear in his heart that night under the neon sky. The bond between human and alien was sealed, not by force, but by choice, and though danger followed. In every shadow, Daniel knew he had done the one thing that mattered. He had bought her forever. Asterisk. The new home, the night air, was cold as Daniel guided Lyra through the winding alleys. The noise of the dark market faded behind them. Replaced by the hum of distant ships, she walked slowly, each step unsure. Her thin fingers still clung to his hand, as if afraid that letting go would send her back to chains. When they reached his workshop, Daniel pushed open the door. The warm smell of oil and metal greeted them. It wasn't much, just a single room filled with scattered tools, old parts, and a half-broken engine in the corner. But to Lyra, it felt like another world. She stepped inside carefully. Her eyes scanned the shelves and tables. Her glowing gaze lingered on the walls where strange human posters hung, colors she had never seen before. Daniel closed the door behind them, locking it. His shoulders eased a little. But his mind stayed sharp. He knew they were not safe yet. Lyra touched the edge of a table, then pulled back quickly, as if afraid to break something. "This is your home?" she asked in a quiet voice. Daniel nodded. "It's not much, but it's safe." Safe. That word felt foreign to her. For years she had lived in cages, always waiting for footsteps, for orders, for pain. She turned slowly, staring at him with unreadable eyes. "And I belong here now." Daniel frowned. "No, you don't belong to anyone. You are free." The words were simple, but they struck deep inside her. Her chest tightened. Freedom sounded too heavy, too impossible. He pulled out a chair for her. "Sit, you need rest." She hesitated, then lowered herself onto the seat. Her thin frame looked so fragile in the dim light. Daniel poured water into a cup and slid it to her. She took it with trembling hands. This time, drinking without hesitation, the silence between them stretched. But it wasn't the same silence of fear as before. It was softer, almost gentle. Daniel picked up a broken gear and began working. His hands steady, his mind focused, yet his eyes often lifted to her. She watched him, curious, as if trying to understand who he was. At last, she whispered, "Why do this? Why risk everything?" Daniel didn't stop his work. His voice was calm. "Because you deserve better. Everyone does." She looked down, her glowing eyes dim. "No one ever said that to me." Hours passed, the city outside grew quiet, inside. The workshop, time moved differently. Lyra explored little by little, touching tools. Staring at the strange glowing lamp, she found a small shelf with old books. She picked one up and opened it carefully. The words meant nothing to her, but the pictures of stars and ships filled her with wonder. When Daniel noticed, he smiled. "Faintly, those are from Earth." She tilted her head. "Your world." He nodded, "Far away, but sometimes I still dream of it, for a brief moment." Lyra forgot the weight of chains. She imagined what Earth might look like: blue skies, green fields. A place where no merchant's voice called her a thing, as night deepened. Daniel laid another blanket on the floor near the heater. "You can sleep here," he said. She looked at him, searching his face for lies, but found none. Slowly, she lowered herself onto the blanket, curling up, her eyes closed. Though her body still trembled, Daniel sat at his workbench, staring at the dim lamp. His thoughts were heavy. The merchant's warning echoed in his head. "She will ruin you. She brings only trouble." But when he looked at her sleeping form, so fragile yet still breathing, he knew he had no regrets. Outside, unseen eyes watched the workshop from the shadows. The guards had not forgotten. The market would not forgive. But inside, for one night more, the alien girl slept in warmth, free of chains, and Daniel, the lonely human mechanic, felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. The chase the workshop was quiet. Only the soft hum of the heater filled the air. Lyra slept on the floor wrapped in the blanket, her breathing steady for once. Daniel sat at his workbench, tools in his hands, but his mind far away. He knew the dark market would not stay silent. He had defied them, and men like that never forgot. Suddenly, a sharp sound broke the silence, a heavy thud on the door. Daniel's head snapped up. His body tensed. Another crash followed, this time stronger. Lyra's eyes opened in fear. She sat up, clutching the blanket. "Stay behind me," Daniel whispered, his voice calm but urgent. He grabbed a wrench from the table, the closest thing to a weapon he had. The door burst open. 2 armored guards stormed inside, their eyes glowing under dark helmets. Behind them, shadows moved. More were waiting outside. The first guard growled, "Return the girl, human, or you die." His voice was like steel scraping. Daniel raised the wrench, his hands firm even though his heart raced. "She's not yours anymore," he said coldly. The guards lunged forward. Daniel swung hard, the wrench smashing into one's helmet. Sparks flew as the alien stumbled. The second guard slashed with a blade. Daniel barely dodged, the blade cutting across his shoulder. Pain burned, but he didn't stop. Lyra screamed, her body frozen in fear. But when the guard reached for her, she crawled backward, eyes glowing brighter than before. Daniel fought with desperate strength, every strike wild but filled with fire. He slammed one guard into the wall, grabbed another tool, and struck again. The sound of metal hitting armor echoed in the small workshop, but more guards pushed through the doorway. Too many. Daniel's chest heaved, his grip slippery with blood. He grabbed Lyra's arm. "Run," he shouted. She hesitated, but now his voice cut through her fear. They darted through the back door, stumbling into the narrow alley. The night air hit their faces. Neon signs flickered above. The guards shouted behind them, heavy. Boots pounding against the ground, Daniel pulled Lyra's hand. Leading her through twisting alleys he knew well. He had walked them many times while searching for parts. Now they were his only hope. The city roared around them, engines, voices, machines blending with the sound of their footsteps. "Where are we going?" Lyra gasped, struggling to keep up. Daniel didn't look back, away from here. His voice was sharp, his eyes scanning every corner for escape. They turned sharply into a narrow tunnel. The stench of oil and rust filled the air behind them. The guards' voices echoed closer. Daniel's heart pounded. He had no weapon left, no safe place, only his will to keep her free at the end of the tunnel. They burst into a wide street, filled with glowing vehicles and crowds of aliens. Daniel pulled Lyra into the moving crowd, trying to vanish. The guards pushed after them, shouting. Some aliens moved aside. Some watched curiously, whispers spreading. Lyra clung to his arm, her breath sharp. Her glowing eyes made her stand out. Daniel quickly pulled off his jacket and threw it over her head. Hiding her face, "Keep your head down," he whispered. They slipped between vendors and machines, weaving through smoke and light. But the guards were relentless. One spotted them, shouting, "There!" The human. Daniel's chest tightened. He pulled Lyra down another alley. Narrower and darker. His lungs burned, but he didn't stop. The sound of chasing footsteps grew louder. At last, they stumbled into an abandoned hangar. Broken ships resting in silence. Daniel pushed Lyra behind a large metal crate, both of them gasping for air. For a moment, there was silence, only the hum of broken engines. Lyra's eyes wide with fear. Daniel pressed his hand against his bleeding shoulder. His voice was low. "They won't stop. They'll keep hunting us," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "Then we keep running, together." Daniel met her glowing eyes for the first time. He saw not just fear in them, but something stronger, courage. Outside, the guards spread out, their footsteps echoing in the hangar. The chase was not over. It had only begun. Asterisk. The secret past the hangar was silent, except for their heavy breathing. Broken ships loomed like ghosts in the shadows. Daniel leaned against a rusted crate, blood dripping from his shoulder. Lyra knelt beside him, her glowing eyes worried. "You're hurt," she whispered, reaching for his arm. Daniel shook his head, forcing a smile. "It's nothing," but the pain cut deep. For a long moment, neither spoke. The sound of distant guards searching echoed faintly, but for now, they were hidden. Lyra's hands trembled as she pressed cloth against his wound. She had never cared for anyone before. She had only learned how to obey. But something inside her refused to let him bleed alone. Daniel studied her face, tired, yet glowing with quiet strength. "Lyra," he said softly, "why were you in that cage? Who put you there?" Her body stiffened, her eyes lowered. She stayed silent, but Daniel's gaze was steady. Not demanding, only waiting. At last, her voice broke the silence, low and trembling. "I was born to a family of healers. My people lived on a green world. Far from here, we were not warriors, we were not rulers. We only healed. That was our gift." Her words carried both pride and sorrow. She looked away, her hands clutching the cloth tighter. But one day, ships came. They said my people carried dangerous secrets. They said we had powers we should not have. They burned villages, they captured us. I was only a child when they took me." Daniel's chest tightened. He could picture it, fire raining on a peaceful world, soldiers dragging children from there. Holmes Lyra's voice grew softer, but sharper too. "They discovered something in me. A gift stronger than others. I could feel life itself. I could heal wounds faster, even bring back someone close to death." To them, that was not a gift. It was a weapon. They sold me from master to master, each one using me until I had nothing left. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but with a light of pain too old for her young face. "I stopped healing. I stopped trying. I thought if I stayed weak, if I stayed silent, they would forget me. But they never did. They only chained me tighter." Daniel's fists clenched, his jaw tightened with anger. He wanted to destroy every chain that had ever touched her. Lyra finally looked up at him, her glowing eyes meeting his. "Now you know, Daniel. You bought more than a girl, you bought a curse. They will never stop hunting me, because if I live free, I am dangerous to them." Daniel's voice was steady, firm as iron. "You are not a curse, you are a person, and no one has the right to decide your worth but you." Her lips parted slightly, shocked by his words. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not even her own people before they were taken. Silence stretched, heavy but warm, for the first time. Lyra felt something different inside her chest. It was not just survival, not just fear. It was the beginning of belonging. But the moment was short. A shout echoed outside the hangar. Guards had found their trail again, their voices carried through the night. Daniel pushed himself up despite the pain, his voice calm but urgent. "We can't stay. They'll be here any second." Lyra rose to her feet, fire glowing in her eyes now. She pulled his arm around her shoulder, supporting him. "Then we run. But know this, Daniel. If they catch us, they won't just kill you, they'll kill me. To them, I am too dangerous to live." Daniel looked at her, his voice like a vow. "Then we make sure they never catch us, together." They slipped deeper into the shadows of the broken hangar. The past had been revealed, but it was only the beginning. For now Daniel knew the truth, and the truth made their enemies even more deadly. And yet, as they moved together through the darkness, Lyra's secret past no longer felt like a curse. It felt like a reason to fight. The betrayals, the abandoned hangar gave them cover for a while, but Daniel knew it could not last. His wounds still burned, and Lyra's glowing eyes made it impossible to hide forever. They needed a place to rest, someone they could trust. Daniel thought of one named Rogan, an old friend from his mechanic days. Rogan had helped him before, had shared tools and work. If anyone would hide them, it was him. They slipped through alleys until they reached a small workshop on the edge of the city. Its metal doors were half broken, lights flickering weakly. Daniel knocked twice. Then once more, a voice answered, rough but familiar. "Daniel, what in the void are you doing here?" The door creaked open, and Rogan stepped out. A large man with grease stains on his clothes and sharp eyes. His gaze fell on Lyra instantly, then on Daniel's bleeding shoulder. He whistled low, "Looks like trouble found you, old friend." Daniel's voice was heavy. "We need a place just for tonight." Rogan scratched his chin, hesitating, but finally nodded. "All right, come inside." The air smelled of burnt metal, tools, and scraps lay everywhere. Rogan poured water into a cup and shoved it toward Daniel. "You always had a talent for finding danger," he muttered. His eyes flicked to Lyra again, curiosity mixed with something colder. Lyra stayed close to Daniel, her instincts screaming. She felt eyes watching her like she was still in a cage. Daniel noticed, but said nothing. He trusted Roganor, at least he wanted to. Hours passed. Daniel tried to rest while Rogan worked quietly at his bench. Lyra sat near the shadows, her hands gripping the blanket. Her glowing eyes never left Rogan. Finally, Rogan broke the silence. Daniel, you know what you've done, right? Buying her. That market doesn't forgive. You're marked now, and her. She's worse than trouble. She's a target. Daniel's voice was steady. I know. But I couldn't leave her there. Rogan shook his head. Always the fool with a heart. His tone carried no warmth, only warning. Later, when the city grew quiet, Daniel drifted into a light sleep. Lyra remained awake, listening. She heard footsteps in the other room, whispers, the sound of comes being activated. Her chest tightened, she crept closer, and her heart froze. Rogan's voice was low but clear. Yes, I have them, the human and the girl. Send your men, I'll keep them here. Her breath caught, betrayal cut deeper than chains. She backed away, her hands trembling. Daniel still slept, unaware of the knife about to fall. She shook him urgently, whispering, Daniel, wake up. His eyes opened, confused. What he called them, she hissed. He told the guards where we are. Daniel's blood ran cold. He jumped to his feet, pain screaming from his wound. He grabbed his bag and tools. Rogan entered the room, his smile thin and sharp. You should have never come here, Daniel. I don't need your friendship. I need credits, and the market pays well for both of you. Daniel's fists clenched. Rogan. After everything. Rogan shrugged. Survival, old friend. You know how this city works. The sound of boots thundered outside, guards approaching fast. Lyra's glowing eyes flared with panic. Daniel grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the back exit. Rogan blocked the way, holding a metal pipe like a weapon. Daniel's voice was steel. Move, Rogan, his old friend sneered. You won't make it out alive. But before Rogan could swing, Lyra stepped forward, her hand glowing faintly. For a brief moment, light burst from her palm, knocking him backward. Daniel stared in shock, but there was no time to question. He dragged Lyra through the back into the night. Guards shouting as they stormed the workshop. The betrayal stung, heavier than the wound in his shoulder. Daniel had trusted Rogan, and that trust nearly killed them. As they ran into the neon-lit streets, Lyra's voice shook but held strength. No one can be trusted. Daniel, only you. Only us. Daniel tightened his grip on her hand, his voice low but fierce. Then us is enough. Behind them, the city burned with betrayal and pursuit. Ahead of them lay only danger, but together they ran. Hearts pounding, shadows chasing. The night of betrayal had only made their bond stronger, and it made Daniel certain of one thing: he would rather die beside her than live in a world where she was chained again. The sacrifice. The streets blazed with neon lights as Daniel and Lyra ran. Their shadows stretched long behind them. Guards shouted in the distance, their boots striking the ground like thunder. The betrayal still burned in Daniel's chest, but there was no time to grieve. Lyra's breath came fast, her glowing eyes darting around every corner. Daniel's wound bled through his shirt, his steps heavy. Still, he didn't let go of her hand. They burst into a dead-end street. High walls surrounded them. Engines roared behind as armored vehicles pulled in. Guards poured out, weapons ready. The merchant himself stepped forward, his sharp teeth glinting under the lights. Daniel pushed Lyra behind him, raising a metal rod he had grabbed along the way. His voice low but steady. Stay behind me. The merchant laughed cruelly. You think you can fight us, human? One mechanic against an army. Give her up, and maybe we'll let you crawl away. Daniel's heart pounded. He knew the truth. He couldn't win this fight. But he also knew he couldn't surrender. He looked at Lyra, her face pale with fear, and whispered, Run when I say, don't look back. She shook her head violently. No, I won't leave you. Daniel gave a small, pained smile. You have to, Lyra. Your life means more than mine. The guards advanced. Daniel charged forward with a roar. His metal rod clashed against alien blades. Sparks flew. He fought like a man possessed, every strike fueled by rage and love. One guard's blade slashed across his side. Blood sprayed, but Daniel didn't fall. He slammed the rod into another's chest, knocking him down. He fought with everything, every ounce of strength. Lyra cried out, "Daniel!" She wanted to run to him, but her legs froze. His blood stained the ground, his breathing ragged. Yet he kept standing. The merchant sneered. "Fool, you throw away your life for her." Daniel spat blood and grinned through the pain. "Better than living in your chains." The guards closed in. One struck him hard, sending him to his knees. Lyra's heart shattered. Her hands shook. Light flickering at her fingertips, Daniel forced himself up one last time. His body screamed in pain. But his voice was strong now. Lyra ran. But she didn't run. Instead, her fear broke into fire. The light in her hands blazed brighter, spilling across the street like a storm. Guards stumbled back, shielding their eyes. The glow spread from her palms into her whole body. Her voice trembled but rose like a bell. No more chains. A wave of energy burst outward, pure and alive. It struck the guards, knocking them back into walls. Armor cracked, weapons shattered. Even the merchant stumbled. His mocking grin wiped away in shock. Daniel fell to one knee, staring in disbelief. Lyra stood in the center of the glow, her eyes blazing like stars. She looked both terrifying and beautiful. No longer a slave, but something far greater. When the light dimmed, the street was silent. Guards lay unconscious, smoke rising from broken weapons. The merchant crawled back, fear in his greedy eyes. She will destroy us all, he gasped before fleeing into the shadows. Lyra rushed to Daniel, falling beside him. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks. "You were ready to die for me," she whispered. Her hands glowed faintly as she pressed them against his wounds. The bleeding slowed, the pain eased. Daniel's voice was weak but steady. "I'd do it again, Lyra, 1,000 times." She shook her head, holding him close. "No more sacrifices. Not alone. From now on, we fight together." Daniel looked at her glowing eyes, the fire in them, and felt something stronger than pain-hope. The night that almost ended in his death had instead awakened her true power. And though the danger was not over, Daniel knew this. He had been willing to sacrifice everything, and in return, he had found something worth living for. Forever love. The street was silent after the battle. Smoke curled from broken weapons. Guards lay scattered. And the merchant had vanished into the shadows. Daniel leaned against the wall, his body weak, his shirt soaked with blood. Lyra knelt beside him, her hands glowing softly as she healed what she could. Her voice shook. "You almost died." Daniel forced a faint smile. "Worth it." His hand reached for hers, rough and trembling. "Because you're free." Lyra's glowing eyes filled with emotion. She had been called property, cursed, worthless, but this man had bled to keep her alive. She whispered, almost afraid of the words. "Why do you care so much? Why me?" Daniel's gaze held hers, steady and full of truth. "Because somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing a girl in chains. I saw you. And I can't imagine a world without you in it." Her heart pounded, her chest ached with something new, something warmer than fear love. For years, she had only known survival. Now, sitting beside this broken but unyielding human, she realized she had found a home. Not in walls, but in him. They stayed hidden until the neon night faded into dawn. When the first light touched the city's broken towers, Daniel stood, weak but alive. Lyra supported him with her small frame. Together, they left the blood-stained street behind. Days passed, they fled the city, hiding in cargo ships. slipping through checkpoints, moving farther from the dark market with each step. The merchants' threats followed them, but the farther they went, the lighter the weight on Lyra's shoulders became. At last, they reached a quiet frontier world. On the edge of the galaxy, a place of wide skies and endless fields. Daniel found work repairing old ships. Honest work, small pay, but enough. He built a small home from scrap metal and wood. And for the first time in years, he smiled without fear. Lyra walked through the green fields barefoot. The sun warm on her skin, her chains were gone, her laughter soft. Uncertain at first filled the air. Daniel watched her and knew he had chosen right. One evening, as the stars spread across the sky, Daniel sat on the porch of their small home. Lyra sat beside him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Do you regret it?" she asked, "giving up everything for me?" Daniel shook his head, his voice steady. "I didn't give up anything, Lyra. I found everything." Her eyes shimmered. She turned to him, her hand brushing against his cheek. "I was nothing," she whispered. "But you made me something again. You gave me more than freedom. You gave me forever." For a moment, the galaxy around them didn't matter. No markets, no chains, no guards, only two souls who had found each other against all odds. Daniel wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "Forever," he repeated. Softly, the word wasn't a promise of safety, or riches, or peace. It was a promise of love. The kind that no market, no chain, no betrayal could break. The stars glowed above them, endless and bright. Once Lyra had thought she would die, nameless, in a cage. Now, she sat beside the man who had chosen her not for a night, but for a lifetime, and in that quiet place, with the hum of distant ships in the sky and the warmth of his arm around her, Lyra finally believed in something she had never dared to before: hope. Their story had begun in the darkest corners of the galaxy, but it ended here, in the light. A human who refused to walk away, and an alien girl who learned what it meant to be loved forever was theirs. Asterisk.